Welcome to this explainer on the Foundry by Forge College. Today, we're putting on our hard hats and acting as engineers, assembling our individual Solana components into a deployable final machine. Because, let's be real, the alternative is just a duct-taped mess of code that's going to crash on day one. Right now, we're making our way through the Programming with Anchor module, which is part of the broader Anchor Framework Essentials and Solana Development Tools track, and today's specific title is Events and Account Management Workflow. So get comfortable. We're going to synthesize everything you've been working on into a rock-solid, production-ready foundation.
In our previous lesson, we looked closely at cross-program invocation patterns. You know, you've built events, managed accounts, and totally mastered those CPIs in complete isolation. But a pretty obvious question pops up. How exactly do we tie it all together into a cohesive, working workflow? I mean, having great individual parts is wonderful, sure, but if they don't talk to each other correctly, well, you don't really have an application. You just have a box of very expensive digital parts. Okay, let's just quickly glance at our agenda for today's master schematic. We'll start with the assembly blueprint, then move on to printing receipts with events. After that, we'll cover securing account state, mastering cross-program invocations, hitting the pre-flight checkpoint, and finally, wrapping up and deployment. All right, section 1. The assembly blueprint. Let's see how this builds the absolute foundation for our entire application workflow. So, before we roll our final product off the factory floor and send it out into the wild, we need to create what we call a code checkpoint. Basically, this is a cohesive, stable artifact that combines event handling, account management, and our CPI patterns. It proves our logic is completely sound. Think of it like making sure your car actually has brakes before you take it onto the highway, right? By bringing all these pieces together into one testable checkpoint, we ensure it's fully ready for the unit testing and deployment phases coming up next. Moving right along to section 2, printing receipts with events. Now, what's really interesting about this phase is exactly how we handle on-chain events. Think of an anchor event quite simply as a cash register printing a receipt. Why? So the customer, or in our case, the off-chain listener or indexing service, doesn't start yelling at us about missing data. In Anchor, we define these structured program logs using the event macro, and we trigger them using the emit macro. This creates a beautifully structured typed log that off-chain listeners can easily parse consistently every single time. Let's map each event field directly to its source in the program to understand exactly why it matters. This helps keep our event payloads minimal and deterministic. For instance, the from field uses the context account's from key to identify the authority that initiated the change. The to field uses the to key for the target account affected. The amount is just a local variable representing the state delta, and that transfer ID? That's an instruction parameter that essentially acts as a correlation ID, linking your logs right back to the on-chain state. We keep it small and simple to prevent any brittle parsing downstream. So here is the absolute golden rule, folks. Emit your events after state changes, never before. Emitting before state changes is bad because you're just logging an intent, a wish that might actually fail or revert. But emitting after state changes? Good. That means the event is a guaranteed reflection of committed, finalized state. Always treat your events as reliable receipts of what literally just happened. All right, section 3, securing account state. Let's flip the blueprint over and look at how we secure the actual accounts. As you explore more courses and learning programs at Forge College, you'll start to see that applying strict anchor constraints acts like the safety rails for your entire workflow. We need to use explicit account structs. We absolutely must enforce constraints like slapping the mute macro on accounts only when we intend to actually mutate them. We also need to use deterministic program-derived addresses, or PDAs, and carefully reconcile those PDA derivations with expected runtime behavior. If your math doesn't match reality, the whole thing kind of falls apart. Onward to section 4, mastering cross-program invocations. This is where we integrate our plumbing from that previous CPI lesson. Sending a CPI is exactly like handing an exact stock of signed paperwork to another department. Honestly, it's like sending an intern to a totally different floor in a massive corporate office. You have to give them the exact account infos and signer seeds they expect. If you don't, the whole stack of paperwork just gets flat out rejected. So, we have to be incredibly strict here. You must pass the exact account slices the callee expects. You have to include accurate signer seeds for your PDAs. Then, and this is absolutely crucial, you need to verify that the downstream state changes actually occur. Finally, you might need to emit a coordinating local event if necessary, just to describe the global effect of what just went down. Which brings us to Section 5, the pre-flight checkpoint. With the parts assembled, we finally arrive at quality assurance. We're basically running a chronological pipeline to exercise both the happy path and our cross-program invocations. Step 1, build verification using anchor build. Step 2, run an integration scenario to actually fire things off. Step 3, verify the account state. And Step 4, CPI path verification to make sure those external calls went exactly as planned.
Now, that first step updates our IDL, or Interface Description Language. The IDL is literally the translation dictionary bridging our on-chain program with the outside world. Seriously, a mismatched translation dictionary is the most common source of downstream testing failures. If your IDL is out of date, your tests are going to break. It's really that simple. Your code checkpoint only gets a green light when every single one of these criteria passes. The build succeeds with 0 errors. Pass. Event JSON payloads actually appear in the logs. Pass. Account assertions succeed in tests. Pass. CPI downstream state matches your expectations. Pass. If any check fails, you stop, fix it, and rerun until it's perfectly green.
Finally, Section 6, wrapping up and deployment. Let's document our hard work for the deployment team. We wrap up this entire workflow by creating a checkpoint.md file. This is a simple document where you log the passing tests, any known issues, and your deployment prerequisites. It effectively transforms a pile of raw code into a reproducible, professional engineering artifact that is completely ready for a seamless handoff. All right, let's distill this down. Here are the 3 practical principles you absolutely need to memorize. Number 1, emit events only after state mutations. Number 2, keep your event payloads small and deterministic. And number 3, validate your CPI lists and seeds in small, isolated tests before integrating them into the whole shebang. So, I'll leave you with this final thought. Are your events reliable assertions of what just happened or just optional telemetry? Ponder that as you head into your unit testing. As always, this explainer was made by Forge College. I highly encourage you to visit forge.college to learn more about this subject and explore our other awesome Web3 topics. Thanks for hanging out and happy building.